Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sailor Moon Another Story playthrough. This was a bit of an awkward cut because these boss fights... Oh, I miscounted. All that's left is sin. Okay. These boss fights just sort of transition directly into each other after fading back to the field. So, I mean, that transition point is welcome, like, mechanically speaking, because it means that your characters have a chance to level up and regain all their action points for the start of the next battle. You have to reapply all of your buffs, but then you can just do the same thing that you've already been doing. And Oppositio Sin is even easier than the other two because you only need to bubble spray once, and then you're good.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's time to kick her butt.
The Crystal Tokyo section that comes after this is a lot more annoying because there are 5 boss fights. 5 separate boss fights.
Oh boy.
So, a couple of them have, at least one of them has 2 enemies in it, although most of them are just one enemy. But you have to actually, like, go out of your way to find the boss fights in an area where random battles still occur. So, it's not like 3 consecutive boss fights with no break like this is. But, yeah. That's why I say the Inner Senshi are better for this one. I mean, the story kind of nudges you in that direction, but having Sailor Mercury to use bubble spray on these bosses makes a lot more sense than bringing along Sailor Pluto and spamming Time Stop across 3 consecutive boss fights where you don't have a chance to go back to a shop and replenish your items. Time Stop is really effective, but like over the long haul of one of these boss fights, especially when you're underleveled like I am, it can be, well, let's just say I had to refill my cologne supply a lot, and that's not a sentence that I had ever expected to say in my lifetime. And you might be asking at this point, why is it cologne and not perfume? Isn't perfume the girl's version of it? And the answer for that is perfume is a separate item. It actually increases everyone's attack power all at once, the same way Healing Shower does. So I assume the Healing Shower is just magical perfume attack? I don't know.
Usagi's smell just wafts over everyone.
Her musk.
Okay.
Dick's lunch.
A good lunch.
Okay, so at this point in the game, you run up against that wall where the way this game's stats handle damage starts to make it really hard to tell before you go into a battle who is going to do a lot of damage and who is not going to do a lot of damage. Because the way the stats in Another Story work, like, there's basically a cutoff point in the stats where you do almost no damage, but then a few points above that and you start doing 1,000 damage, 2,000 damage, 3,000 damage. The difference in damage that you deal, I'm not sure why, but it's so disproportionate that it becomes comical. Within a few levels, my characters would probably be dealing 3,000, 4,000 damage per hit to this boss, and that starts to make sense considering how much HP this boss has. Like, I'm gonna look something up now. I'm gonna look up the guide that I was glancing at.
Did it give you HP values?
Yeah, the bosses in this guide do give you HP values. Let me just... The guide that I'm looking at is on rpgclassics.com, shrines.rpgclassics.com, SNES, SMAS walkthrough, SHTML. It's just like, you know, a Web 2.0 looking website. Probably based on the original fan translation, now that I think about it. Now, let me see. Does it have HP values? I thought it did have HP values. No, it doesn't. Okay. It has recommended levels, actually. So the recommended level for the boss that I'm fighting now is 45. I think I'm a few levels below that. I mean, I'd check. Well, actually, I can check. I can just look at an earlier part, but I have to open it in another
Player.
darn
Yeah.
player, yeah. Let me just really quickly do that. Movies and TV, go. I blew out my goddamn eardrums again. Okay, so I wanna look at a status. Status, where are you, status? Ah, yeah, okay. Did I not look at the status menu at any point during this part?
Nope.
Oh, no, I found it.
You did.
I went into the status menu to make sure my formation was correct before I went into the boss battle, I think. Okay, so I'm level 40, 40, 38, 40, and 40. I'm
then you
5
leveled
levels...
up. You leveled up a few times after each thing, so you're probably low 40s at this point against Sin. And then you just leveled up again, so...
Yeah, so, like... At this point, I'm already underleveled, and I'm not going to be doing a lot of grinding. Because, spoiler alert, once you get to Crystal Tokyo, the enemies there start to take, like, a lot of time to kill.
The gap between our strength and the Sailor Soldiers is 2 levels. We're actually underleveled. Damn it. You can't possibly be weaker than we splashed some bubbles on you and you just got really weak. Yeah, that's what we're saying.
Okay, so in the anime, Sailor Moon has this ability called Moon Healing Escalation, which is basically the censor's way of getting around the idea of having Sailor Moon actually kill any monsters by having her constantly turn monsters back into humans, which was not a thing that happened much at all in the manga. But like, I want to say 20 episodes in, the entire goddamn series becomes about turning innocent humans into monsters and having to save them from being monsters, rather than throwing your tiara into the monster's face and turning them into a pile of dust. The series just sort of casually ignores the fact that Sailor Moon spent 20 episodes doing that before this became the point of the series. Anyway, so she used this ability here to undo the brainwashing that Apsu...
Except they weren't brainwashed.
There was no indication that they were before this, yes, but like it did sort of like wake up 4 of them from their muddied thoughts, but Sin is a little too fixated on why she started doing this in the first place. So she remains under the spell and goes back to help Apsu. This is the setup for the final boss and the 2 endings. Because I think the main differentiating point between the 2 endings is whether or not Sin and her brother get out of this. I haven't actually watched the bad ending yet. I saw in the guide that there was a good ending and a bad ending, and I looked at the final boss, and I'm like, I'm only like level 45, but the guide says recommended level 55, but fuck it, challenge accepted. And then I went on my first time because time stop is just that overpowered. So yeah, we're getting the good ending. I have no idea what happens in the bad ending, apart from the fact that I think like Anshar and Sin sacrifice themselves in some way, you know.
The bad ending is you go home and then Queen Beryl juggles the chaos symbols around and tells you to try again.
Oh my gosh.
The good ending is almost unsatisfying in how neat and tidy everything ends up, but you know,
Oh.
So this is a bit awkward, and for like 2 whole parts, I didn't even know what I was supposed to be doing here. But okay, so we have boss fights that are scattered around Crystal Tokyo. talking to the NPCs is what you need to do to figure out what you're supposed to do here. But while you're walking around Crystal Tokyo, you have to fight these monsters. And you don't actually like have to fight them because like if you just hit the run command with everyone, you'll skip the battle entirely.
Yay.
And of course, the battle system remembers what you were doing with everyone's character, so once you've run once, you can just spam the escape command without even thinking about it every time. So exploring Crystal Tokyo isn't hard. That said, the encounter rate in this place is pretty high, considering that the Grind Be Gone mod should have cut that in half.
This is half?
For being the utopian future, a lot of places are close-head.
So, like, for a little while, I just run away from every battle because I don't want to deal with it yet. I'm looking for a save point right now. That's what I'm doing. Because I meant this to be the end of a part. But, like... once you try to walk through the northern exit of town, Anshar just tells you that you can't go anywhere. And Chibi-Moon just, like, looks sad for a moment and then walks away. What this is actually supposed to convey is that there's a barrier around the palace and that you need to find the 5 boss monsters around town and kill them to break the barrier so that you can go. But the only way you'll find this out is by talking to the NPCs in the shops, because there's nothing to indicate that there's a barrier stopping you from progressing. It just looks like Chibi-Moon is listening to Anshar and not going. I'm like, what, is she that sad about fighting Anshar? Come on. You've known the kid for like 10 minutes. Anyway, the enemies in this area do take quite a long time to kill. I decided to skip over some of my first encounters with them because I wanted to level up a bit and get to a point where they were somewhat manageable. The problem with this particular party and grinding in this particular area is that the only effective way to fight these enemies is the same way that you would fight the boss fights, by using time stop over and over. And that starts to run through your item supply pretty quick. And I didn't know where the shops were at this point because they kind of blend in with all the closed buildings. Yeah. So I don't find those for another 2 parts. Anyway, it became obvious to me fairly quickly, even without talking to the NPCs, that my goal was to fight boss monsters that are hidden in these weird crystal-shaped objects that are around the town. The problem was, because of the camera angle, I couldn't find 2 of them. So I ended up having to look up a guide, and then I realized, oh, there are 2 giant crystal things that are in the north side of town. I just didn't see them because the camera cut off before it showed the crystal part of the crystals. And I thought they were just walls, and I walked right past them. So yeah, there was a lot of fumbling around that I have mercifully edited out of this playthrough. But the enemies in Crystal Tokyo give you a lot of experience per battle, especially in these 4 enemy battles. So, and this is also the place where you're fighting the final boss as well. So,
what, out in the street in front of the close-head sign?
Yeah. Well, not out here, but like in the palace, 1 screen north.
Yes, the final boss is in front of the Kmart.
I mean, it's a Sailor Moon game. They fight a lot of climactic battles in front of the Kmart.
Yeah, but not the final boss.
Yeah, that usually takes place somewhere more interesting, like the North Pole, which is where all of Kmart's toys come from, you know.
Of course.
Yeah, Superman makes them.
Superman.
You mean Santa Claus makes them, right?
That's always the weirdest thing. It's like they always play up like, this Clark's, childlike innocence and stuff with the whole, Santa wrapped the presents, right? The thing from the animated universe is like, Clark, you live like right where Santa would be if he actually existed. You go up there like every other day. Have you seen him?
He probably just assumes Santa's really good at hiding.
Like, at least in Marvel, they explain Santa's an actual mutant, so...
Okay, so the boss fights in this area, this one's the odd one out because it's 2 enemies that come as a package set. But the bosses in this area are all enemies that appeared in arcs 2 and 3, I think. Maybe they're all from arc 3, I'm not sure. But the point is, like, they're all, like, retread enemies, which is a little bit weak after spending last chapter fighting the new enemies. But, like, all of the new enemies met the Inner Senshi at that palace, so there wasn't anything really left to do over here. Okay, so your goal is to fight all 5 of these boss fights and just unlock the way to the palace where you can fight the final boss. From here, you spend the entire game in Crystal Tokyo up until the end, which makes me ask a really important question. What about that big dramatic-looking passage in the Dark Castle that had an evil barrier in front of it that wouldn't let you proceed past a certain point?
Someone call it... Okay, we need to call She Says so he can get on it.
It's not the first time that's happened. There was a passage like in the Jupiter cave. That there was a big old ruin with Jupiter's symbol on it. There was a long passage to the south. All these areas that look like they're supposed to go somewhere, but in the final game don't. It reminds me a lot of Ultimate 8, which was...
She says, please get on it. We need answers. We can't do it. It's your shtick. You're supposed to do it.
But, like, it reminds me of Ultimate 8, where the game was blatantly unfinished, and there were just doors that didn't go anywhere. Locked doors that were meant to go into areas that were cut. That sort of thing. It's just, it's really sloppy. And I don't get it. Like, it feels like there was supposed to be a big old dungeon that Sailor Jupiter was supposed to explore. And, like, you were supposed to go deeper into the Dark Castle and fight Apsu there, instead of in the palace here for no reason. It's just... Anyway, the reason Chibi-Moon is on this particular team and Sailor Moon is on the other is because, like, Sailor Moon didn't want to run the risk of meeting her future self. Okay.
Makes sense, I guess, but at the same time, that never stopped time travel plots from happening.
Well, I mean, it's funny because she actually does go, like, she and her future self do briefly meet each other in Arc 2. They talk about how they shouldn't, and then, like, in a burst of happy emotion, Usagi just turns around and her future self turns around too, and they run toward each other and just, like, look at each other from a distance and have a moment. So...
It's really less the fact of meeting each other, it's more the knowledge of meeting each other is more the problem.
Yeah.
Theoretically, you can exist in the same space just fine as long as you're not aware you're meeting technically yourself.
Well, it depends on what time travel story you're talking about. Like, we were talking about DCAU Vandal Savage recently, and the weird thing about his time machine was that it couldn't send him anywhere where he already existed.
Which is everywhere, so...
Yeah. So kind of useless in his case. Which is a weird component, but I suppose the DCAU's only other time travel plot was that one where the timeline...
They go meet Jonah Hex.
Well, there was that, yeah, but, like, Bruce Wayne did meet Bruce Wayne in that section. Yeah. But that was also the time travel story where the timeline almost collapsed, so I guess maybe that wasn't supposed to happen.
It was also the bit where Hal Jordan showed up for 2 seconds.
Yeah, I remember.
Would you make up your mind?
Another time shift. I'm up to speed. Carry on.
Purely there just to be a joke for hardcore DC fans, and that's it.
Well, like, we are... It was also, like, a cameo that was nice to have because we'd already had Kyle Rayner in Superman, and we have Jon Stewart as our main Lantern, but Hal Jordan, one of the other like really well-known Green Lanterns, didn't get a chance.
Well, he was going to be the Green Lantern, but then the production staff of the show was like, it's kind of white here.
Well, that's fair. And honestly, I think Jon Stewart's more interesting than Hal Jordan, but,
Yeah. They just kind of took one look at the base roster. It's like, we only have like one girl here and everyone's white. We need to change things up.
Yeah, so I guess that's why they changed out Hawkman for Hawkgirl.
Yeah.
Which led to that really weird storyline with Hawkman showing up in JLU, but...
Yeah. To be fair, DC has no idea what to do with Carter Hall. We'll see how he does in the Black Adam movie, though, so...
I guess.
Justice Society.
The Justice League show is so weird in its transition from the old DCAU stuff, though, because, like, Superman ends on an obvious cliffhanger that was supposed to lead into a season 4 that never happened.
Well, it's also weird because there was the pitch for the Wonder Woman animated series to, do the same for Batman and Superman, but that got rejected, and a lot of the scripts were retooled, which is why the earliest parts of the Justice League for DCAU is so Wonder Woman heavy.
Was it?
Yeah.
Huh.
Like, watch, like, the first... Like, they're all two-parters and stuff, so it's like... Aside from, like, the first one where they get the team together and all that, a lot of them focus on Wonder Woman or have her around a lot.
Let me actually check this. Hang on. I have a list of episodes. Because I wanted to, like, figure out what to watch and what not to watch and all. Desktop. Here we go. Oh, this is my Batman folder. Oops. Open file location. That'll lead me to my DC stuffs. Okay, so Justice League Season 1. The season that everyone likes to forget happened, except for a few select episodes. There's actually... Yeah, there's a Green Lantern episode. The Enemy Below is an Aquaman episode. I can see that being a Wonder Woman thing. Then there's Injustice for All. That was Legion of Doom stuff. Then there's Paradise Lost, which, yeah, I can see that being that's literally a Wonder Woman episode.
Yeah.
There's War World, which is blatantly Superman, but
yeah.
I don't know. Could have worked as Wonder Woman.
Yeah, it's not like all of them, obviously. It's just there's a good chunk of it there that was like, okay, we had these scripts for Wonder Woman stuff that got rejected for her own show. Let's retool them.
Oh, right, and the season finale for this was a 3-part called The Savage Time, which was the Vandal Savage World War II episode. That's definitely a Wonder Woman script.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Ugh, I wish they'd done the Wonder Woman show, though, because her introduction in Justice League was so rushed.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of Season 1 kind of sucks, to be honest, but...
I wouldn't say sucks, it's just more kind of basic.
It's not. It goes beyond being basic. They neutered Superman's entire character because they wanted to have him beaten up by the bad guys a lot, and that would emphasize what a threat the Justice League was facing. They made Superman intentionally weaker to make it seem like a bigger threat than it was. And they immediately course correct the moment Season 2 happened because people called them out on it. Like, Season 2 and several episodes in JLU actually do make fun of how they wrote Superman in that first season, so it's a very Commander Shepard, I should go kind of joke. Like, the line that he would say a lot of the time in Season 1, where this guy must be stopped, you must be stopped, they must be stopped. They make fun of that line a lot in the later seasons. I think at one point, John Jones shapeshifts into Superman and quotes the line in a really hammy voice. I don't like Season 1. I think The Savage Time and maybe In Blackest Night are like the only episodes that really jump out to me as being good in that season.